Welcome to the GreatBase Tennis Podcast. I'm Steve Smith, along with Dave Anderson. And at the table, I'm going solo, but when I go solo, I've got a chair from the Vic Braden Tennis College, and no one is allowed to sit in it. But Dave, thanks for joining us once again. The topic we got first and foremost to get right out of the gate is creative scoring. But let's go back to Kalamazoo. WOs. What do you got?
A terrible trend, I think, that's taking place. I don't know exactly the point of origin. Kind of have an idea that, as UTR really became a big force in the junior tennis right around COVID when they started opening up the tournaments and all of that became more mainstream. But Kalamazoo was a shock to me to see the number of players that withdrew from the back draw. People aren't up there for the right reasons. They're not competing for the right reasons. And in the boys' quarterfinals, the 4 players that were knocked out of the main draw, that fed in immediately to the quarterfinals of the back draw, which the level of play really isn't any different. They withdrew. They didn't even play their match. So it was conceivable that you could have been in the round of 16 in the back draw at Kalamazoo in the boys 16s and not had to play one more match to win the back, because people were dropping like flies. I mean, it was just sad.
The alphabet soup of tennis, ITA, the Intercollegiate Tennis Association. Their summer circuit, for a long time, I had junior players looking to play in ITA tournaments. And then it seemed like every backdraw match, because the older players didn't want to lose the younger players, the college players playing the juniors. And that match count at the end of the year, I think it's a great goal if you've played 100 competitive matches. And, even if it's informal, it's not connected to a tournament or a team event, but just how many matches do you play, set count. But yeah, now I'm very reluctant to have kids go to the ITA because you just like say a kid could go to indoor nationals versus Orange Bowl, and they could play a lot more matches. You have to evaluate if it's a one and done tournament. But yeah, too many WOs. With another thing in college tennis, they have the DNFs, did not finish. I don't think anyone would consider me a doting dad, a braggadocious dad. My son Connor, at Ohio State, 2 years, he transferred. He was in 3 out of 4 Final Fours, and the record was 23-2. I'm getting old. It might have been 22-3, but that's a lot of wins. But you can't really say it was 23-2 because he might have been down and out, but it didn't register as a loss because it was a DNF. Did not finish. And I can understand at a team event where they're trying to move the tournament along, but my son Connor one time was playing for Ty Tucker, and he won the first set and got down like 1-4, and he was intentionally double faulty, missing every return. And Ty, or one of the assistants, said, "What are you doing?" He goes, "I'm not playing a 10-point tiebreaker. I'm going to lose this set as fast as I can." Because once you start the third set, they let you finish it. But if one team is clinched, everything turns into a 10-point tiebreaker, and whatever. And that spirit of a match is a match. It's just loved it back when college tennis was 2 out of 3. But that's a different thought than creative scoring. But that is those are some thoughts for WOs and DNFs. You got to play, and the more you play, the better you play. I mean, experience is the best teacher.
Yeah, 100%.
Creative scoring. We were watching some U.S. Open today. Like you, we have a huge TV by the indoor court, and it was a Connors McEnroe highlight tape. And I always think of Gloria Connors had Jimmy play sets, 15-30, one serve. And, what an important point to, level at 30 all versus now you could be down, 15-40. Yeah. Why don't you give us an idea for creative scoring? I know it's a repeat, but I've got a list of 8 things here that people have asked us to talk about on our podcast.
Yeah, I think creative scoring makes practice fun, and it makes it productive. And more importantly, it can bridge gaps and get, that hierarchy that we battle, where players only want to play with better players, et cetera. And, we do it all the time where I may have a kid that's, an age group and a half ahead and certainly a better player, but give the younger player 3-2-1 scoring, for instance, and the other player just plays traditionally. The older, better one has traditional scoring, and the younger one has 3-2-1, where, any winner they hit is 2 points. Any volley or overhead winner is 3 points, and everything else is just 1. And it puts them in a very competitive, it gives them the chance to compete. So both players feel that internal kind of reality pressure of maybe I'm going to win, maybe I'm going to lose. But I think that it just adds a lot of spice to the typical practice match. I mean, I think there's a time and a place to play just, hey, you guys go out and spin the racket and get it going and play a full match. But I think that creative scoring systems and situational training, to me, are just really, really critical if we're trying to build kids' games for the future.
One thing with, playing up, Jimmy Connors always played where the pressure is. Years ago in Sweden, a couple of things. When a match was over, you'd go to the tournament desk. You would either say 2-0 or 2-1. That was how you reported the score. You didn't go, 6-4, 4-6, 7-5, 7-5. But also, I go way back, 50 plus years into this, being around tennis, that every other month. So the odd months, it was 11 under, 13 under, 15 under. And the even months, so you get into, say, February, and then you go to the even numbers. So every other month, you were more the top dog. You weren't, playing, you just say your first year 14s. So, but the next month you would be the player in the older year. And most sports are so large, like say ice hockey, soccer. Just think about years people were born. I say my son, well, he's an 89. They just they just tell you that was their number. He's an 89. He's a 90. Playing up, having an older player, brawn versus brain, is you put a kid through a skill test. Maybe a lot of times it's not a maybe, it's a definitely. The younger player has more skills, but the older player just muscles their way through it. I like to play no winners until you get to the green zone. You can put a cone. The green zone starts at GVP, which is 10.5 feet, half the distance from the service line to the baseline. Give me 50 creative ways to play matches.
Mm-hmm.
And it's kind of like when you put the paper clip on the table and say, all right, write down as many ideas as you have for this paper clip. But yeah, you're right that it can be fun. I like to play where it's the kid is up, one kid's up 40 love, serving 40 love, and they return. So the returner is serving love 40. So, we had someone play a set the other day, and usually that 40 love advantage, love 40 advantage, you win quite quickly. Then you go to 30. If you win that, you go to 15. And in my tennis teaching days, only a couple times I had someone turn the table where then you play a set where it's even. And, then you could say, well, play 2-all, play no ad. So they just have that experience of playing ahead, playing behind.
Yeah, we do a lot of that too. We're starting at 30 all, no ad, just to, because I think that one of the hardest things to teach inexperienced players is the value of a point. I think back to the podcast with Dave Severson and how he was saying he was just shocked how many really good players just throw away points. And I think that 30 all no ad really helps people attain a higher level of focus, appreciation for just a 1 point value. And it's also obviously a good gateway for kids as they head into college tennis.
Winning 3 points in a row. You can combine, situational drills with, rally 8, go out and, play for depth. One of the oldie goalie drills. It's amazing. We tell kids rally 8 and they can, and then play the point out, rally 6 and they can. And then when you say, okay, ready, play, the anxiety levels are just too high. We used to play with the BIS points, free points. Say, okay, you're going to play, but you get 7 free points, whatever, maybe a different number. And it's really interesting is how do they use those points? And so if a kid got up 40-15, he goes, well, I'll take a free point. No, you want to play, and you can lose that point, be 40-30. And then you play no ad, say, well, I'll play the next point is 40 all, and say, oh, I'll take the BIS point now. It's just interesting to see what type of savvy someone has for thinking on their feet when they compete. The old drill 7-11, that drill's gone away. You just don't even hear that anymore. The server's got to get to 11, returner's got to get to 7, serve and volley has to go every time. And then you just flip the scoring for little kids. If you're the serve and volleyer and you get to 7, you win. But you have to do the drill. You have to practice going forward. With go ahead.
We do a lot of the anti-serve, the terminology, the jargon now, serve +1, but kind of a cooperative drill where it's serve, return, and then each player has to hit 2 balls beyond the service line. And once that's done, the point opens up and they play it out competitively to win it. But it's a point for both of them if they complete it. And if they don't complete it, then they just minus a point. So it's very hard for people to complete 10, 20 points as a team, where they get the serve in, get the return past the service line, and then each player hits 2 more. And, it's really what you said about people once there's an actual score attached, it's like they don't miss the ball through the middle of the court. They look really pretty accomplished as a player, and then somebody hits a serve to them, and it's panic city, and there's just errors all over the place.
Keeping score, we just call it ping pong style. We don't, ping pong, table tennis, where you serve 5, your opponent serves 5. We just can do it as an even number, 4, 6. So you're serving both deuce court and ad court. And, just play to 21, but then keep the score. Sometimes we just play points, play for time. A young boy here from Canada, I've told him, I said, put this on your refrigerator. He lost 17-3. The scoring system, say a kid loses, 2-1, just what's the point differentiation? So then another whole thing, do they really know their plus minus? I mean, how are they really doing? I have a chart on the table here, 2 12-year-olds, one from Philly and one from Toronto here. And someone had to win, and how many points were played, how many unforced errors. Putting teams together, it's a differential. So you're fighting to win games. It's you put the teams together, and because some kid will cruise, instead of no, I'm going to lose this set, but I don't want to lose 6-1. If I could fight for 6-2, it's going to help the team out.
Yeah.
I'd like to ask kids, do you know how to keep score in cross country? I mean, if you don't have 5 runners, they just tally up the. If you have the first 5 runners, it's the best score in cross country. You're going to be at 15. But say you have kids that finish really high in the race, do really well, but the 5th person just is way behind. So you have to have depth. College tennis. Every singles match used to be every match, singles and doubles, was worth 1 point. But just learning to compete, learning to fight for every point. It is true when you have lopsided, the superior player is the inferior player, that one player plays flat. Then they'll have the attitude at times too, like I'm playing the wrong player. Go home and complain what group they're in.
Yeah. When people have a handicap against them, or when you make even a player below level get a positive handicap, sometimes they look at me like I've insulted them. And, they're missing the whole purpose of it.
Yeah, I have a player here this week who I said, okay, the only thing you hit topspin on is your serve. Let's watch you play. So he take a time out and got 20 people watching him play, and no, you can't hit topspin. Of course, his grips won't allow him to do anything but hit topspin, especially on the forehand side. And can you play a ball flat? Can you play a ball with some side spin? You play a ball with underspin? With creative scoring. And then it go into ghost doubles. I've always told college coaches, have a playoff. Who's the best deuce court player? Who's the best ad court player? I remember running a team on interim basis with you, and there's a couple of Swedes on it. And the Swedes were playing 1 up, 1 back. And I said, well, there's going to be a war. Sweden's going to finally go to war. Because I was just like, no, the drill is you have to serve and volley. So many things. Ed Crass with his game, 1-on-1 doubles. Tommy Haas at one time told him, hey, why don't you let people stay back? And he did, but then he went back and said, no, you have to serve volley. All the lines on a tennis court, now the pickleball lines, the 10 and under lines, I think there should be one of those blended lines right down the middle of the court, and people should be playing 1-on-1 doubles all the time. I remember telling my son Connor with just at the end of a practice session, just ask the guy, hey, let's play a couple games of ghost doubles. And, you can just work on your serve volley, work on your cross-court returns. And doubles is so much just an afterthought. But creative scoring can come into doubles as well. Connor told me when he was at Ohio State at one point, if you lost your serve in practice, playing doubles, straight to the treadmill. So it's pretty important to hold your serve. But kids get their serve broken, and it doesn't bother them. I tell juniors on the pro circuit when pros are playing, one, they have limited time. It's interesting, they get 2 cans of balls. And I remember being at Indian Wells one time, how many balls Hewitt would hit when he'd have 30 minutes. He'd have 2 people shagging balls for him. And just go, 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 go. But with the pros, they don't keep score. They know, especially on the men's side, they know if they got their serve broken. They just know. And juniors are just so uptight about the score.
We did something really, really simple today with a few different kids that really illustrates, I think, pretty easily. And they're 5 years apart in age. Mason Vaughn turned 16 today, and Alex Cairo's 21 now at Michigan. But they each just had to serve a game to 11, an entire game. It's like, no different playing service set or whatever. But, it is what it is, and it just tells the tale of the serving being much more of a factor down the road. And Alex broke, meaning he won Mason's game to 11 serving, and then he kind of Alex held at like 11-1. And then I said, okay, now just go volleyball scoring to 11. So the minute you lose your serve point, the other player begins serving, and you only score as the server. And Alex, I think, again, won 11-2. And I think that it's just very, very deceiving in junior tennis. I feel like anything we can do to get them to feel the impact of the mistakes that are allowed in juniors that aren't going to be allowed at higher levels of play.
With the scoring system was put in place where tennis at one point was a garden party, 1873, Sir Walter Clapton Wingfield. The tennis court is based on the size of his backyard, the garden party. In fact, in England, they'll call the backyard the garden. And it's just amazing. The server, that term comes from the servant putting the ball in play. And people, they don't volley. So yeah, Mason Vaughn, who's younger, has done really well. Alex Cairo, I know he was somebody who's been on the podcast, helped us with the podcast. Brandon Flanagan started him. I spent a lot of time with Alex. Mm-hmm. So he's at Michigan. That's big time. But being able to just play against a younger player and put the ball on a dime. This gets maybe away from creative scoring, but it's definitely creative. Is have the older player play with a wooden racket. I think might be a little bit too tough to play with a spoon. But we have people trying to play mini tennis with the teaching aid. It's called a spoon. But Cairo, I remember when he was younger, we do the tiebreaker test where you have the quad. It comes from Burwash. The quadrant. Peter would have you hit to quadrants, and then we just put a score to it. I talked to a coach who's coming to visit. His brother, ATP points, lost love. Because if you don't have a backhand volley and the coach is cranking it, you just do it to a score. You got to hit your serve in. The ball's got to go 3 feet up the fence, and then you got targets. Braden's definition for tennis, hitting targets. But I remember Cairo was ultra focused when it came down to winning the. We do have it for fun. We do it 4 times. Start with a forehand for the Australian Open. Start with a backhand for the French, and then Wimbledon in the U.S. And you're out if you miss. But it's the first question we ask when kids come back to visit a second time. Say, when's the last time you did a tiebreaker test? And that's where mom and dad go out on the court and feed balls. Is just get into where to hit it. If you're not a technician, don't try to be. And just playing tennis on half a court, playing tennis in the alley. That gets away perhaps from just creative scoring. But I do, just to repeat the one that you mentioned, if you're up into the net and you win the point, you get a +3 or -1. Just keep your own score. You serve 10 points, the other person serves 10. And just keep your own score. At the baseline, and you take a ball that's above your shoulder and you go down the line and miss wide, it's a -3. Just keep your own score. Mm-hmm. Just play 10 points. And just play 10 and say, okay, stop, rotate. I tell people you're not playing the person on the other side of the net. In the middle of the court, you can go +2, -2. It's just amazing how people go for that $100 shot from the 10-cent position. I guess from that, we've already touched upon situational drills. We could add a little bit to that. Any other comments on either or? Creative scoring, situational drills?
I learned a great drill from a guy named Paul Wagner. He's my age group, and but we used to do it back when we were in the 40s. And it was pretty simple, really. In that, again, if you were the first player to earn the short ball and come in, you already won the point. And then if you actually won the point, if you got up there and they either missed a pass or you hit a volley winner or forced an error, whatever it was, then you got a bonus point. So just by earning the short ball, you were already up 1-0. And you just play baseline games kind of like that. Feed in. And I thought it was, I remember him teaching me that, and it was a great way, I think, to get people to They didn't even have to execute up there. So, if they come in and they make their approach shot and they get past, they still are 1-0 up in that rally. The other person didn't really gain a point at all. And I thought that was a great way to incentivize, some of the people to really look at the whole situation a little bit differently.
Attack, counterattack. I like the drill where you feed to their one-handed underspin backhand approach and just go play a set. And this is how you start every point. So right away you have, the attackers hitting volleys and overheads, then the counterattacker passing shots and lobs. And then, you can do it off conventional approach volleys. So you can actually use it to teach the skill, but right away then they're getting to play. So you can combine, say form-based teaching with game-based teaching. We always say, okay, puts the two together, it's principle-based. I like to have people just throw up a high defensive lob, hit an overhead right up the middle off the bounce, and then play it out. And then the counterattacker, with a short, compact swing, can they take the incoming overhead and not lob twice. So then they get the ball down at the player's feet.
Mm-hmm.
There's footwork drills. Remember Vandermeer's drill where one player comes in, touches the net, and then you have to hit a courtesy lob over their head, and then you play it out. So it creates that retreat attack. Can you get back and just find a way to throw that ball up high? And I'd say most juniors don't know how to lob. Remember my brother was the assistant hockey coach of the Rangers, and I ended up in Madison Square Garden watching the year-ending tournament a couple times. And the players are just lobbing to the height of the Madison Square Garden ceiling. But most juniors are just, they don't have the savvy, the experience of a veteran player. And again, unfortunately, juniors don't play veterans anymore. But to throw that lob up high, with the idea that you're not hitting a winner, you're just getting them off of the net. There's so many. Go ahead.
Yeah. No, I think anything that we can do to, I love drills that pull people in and make them have to get up and back in the court, because, the typical player today, obviously they move much better east-west than they do north-south. And we call those painkillers. That particular drill, I can't remember what Vandermeer called it, but we do a counter version of that where a player is at the service line, the other player is at the baseline, and the player at the service line just has to basically tap the feed over in the service box. And then the other player comes up, plays a drop shot off of it. But in the time that you fed the ball in, if you were the feeder from the beginning, you have to run back, touch your baseline with the racket, and then come back and recover a drop shot. And the point goes live. I think that kind of athletic scrambling, especially now because we're dealing with such one-dimensionality in the athlete, that because of not much variation in their sport background, I think anything like that really, really helps kids.
Yeah, Dennis, who wasn't on a clay court, he'd have a piece of chalk in his pocket. He'd make an X, small X, because some kids are just not, they feed the ball and they have to go back to the baseline, but they just had to go back to a 3/4 court line, so 10 and under line. But yeah, anything that creates movement. This wasn't for a score. It wasn't a situational drill, but Braden's 4-corner drills. He hit a volley, touch one of the service box corners. There's 4 of them. And then after the volley, you come in, touch the net, bet another ball, go back, touch the corner. So you're just turning and going. And that's where, especially today, when most American kids, even if they weren't a basketball player, they could play a little bit of basketball because everybody played outdoors, and there wasn't all that time on a screen, on a telephone. To simply create the situation with, you can change it too, or say, okay, someone comes to play, they play a conventional approach volley down the line. Passing shot has to go down the line. first volley has to go down the line, and then play that out. And I wouldn't play that as a set. I'd play that with what we just call a numerical scoring system, because it takes people a long time to play points, because they're not one person's going to miss the approach volley, one person's going to miss the passing shot, one person's going to miss the volley down the line. They got to make 3 shots before they can play the point out. It's like putting skip ropes out, or the people have to rally over the back 9, the distance from the service line to the baseline. You say, okay, rally 8 deep. And obviously, if you're going to play points, you can't put skip ropes on the court. So you just put cones at the side of the court, and people can play all day because they can't hit 8 balls deep. So it starts off with where it's partner. Then after you get to 8, your partner becomes your opponent. Drills are fun, but also too, to make just the boring drills too. I like the thought that, which doesn't happen so much anymore, is 2 kids go out and go, let's just hit cross court for half an hour one way, then a half hour the other way. We just had a player here from Indiana, and he plays for Jeremy Wurtson. Actually, think of Jeremy. He's on our course, Tennis Intelligence Applied. His 11-year-old is pre-post. Game number 1 in the NCAAs. But one of our students is playing for him. Another one of his students was just here. And this kid's from Northern Cal, and Dan Goldie was a really healthy 55. That's what he wants to hit a half hour. He won the NCAAs to beat Connors at Wimbledon, Stanford player. He wants to hit a half hour one way, half hour the other way, half hour up the middle, and say, okay, now we'll play. And our student's not too crazy. He wasn't too crazy as a junior about that type of practice. But yeah, we're always telling people when they leave here, it's a lot of people from up north, and when you get home, the weather's still on your side. And it's amazing how many people say yes, that they live in walking distance to courts within their neighborhood, but they don't use those courts.
Yeah.
And then they don't feed each other baskets. You feed me 10, I'll feed you 10. I'd like to have players just come up to the net, and you're going to volley. If you miss in the net, wide, long, you jog backwards. Always jog backwards to strengthen the legs. Don't turn and walk. But you just stay up there trying to hit deep volleys. And then also tell people when you're doing a drill like that, put the ball right on their forehand volley. Put it right on their backhand volley. I get off on hockey tangents. It's like Wayne Gretzky, what a hockey mind, hockey IQ. Goaltender comes up from the farm team. He's going to play for the main team, and Gretzky's got all the players. Shoot his gloves, shoot his stick, shoot his pads. Don't score against this guy. Let's make this guy confident. Because, practice has nothing to do with it. It's like, well, I scored in practice. But yeah, kids are just so uptight. They're not even evaluating, making those little discoveries on how their opponent hits a ball. With anything else on that? Creative scoring, situational drills?
No, I mean, I love that drill at the net that you described, and we do 3 errors and out where because it's interesting when I get to hit balls still, and I'll hit with one of my favorite people, Bruno Braga, who's a 55-year-old Brazilian, and we may not use 3 balls in our warm up for our match, and we're hitting complementary into each other's strike zones and transition to the net, volleys, boom, boom. But when I warm up with the kids, even the very good ones, there's not really what I would call a rhythm in the warm up. And especially when one player's up, one player's back. And so we do that where, I'm at the net volleying to you, and I'm trying to put it, into, a hula hoop in the back 9 right down the middle, and you're trying to hit me below the shoulders basically. And, but whenever there's 3 errors, it's just go, and the player at the net just has to backpedal. The other guy sprints in, and they track the 3 balls down on the court that they were using, and they begin again. It can be just like a piston engine going back and forth. It goes so quickly because of the number of errors, and creating awareness. I think a really talented kid I was working with today, and I said, listen, this isn't punishment, it's to create awareness. That you can put a rubber band on your wrist and snap it or whatever, but I said, you got to learn to stick a volley. So anytime you play a mid-court drop shot or a drop volley, I said, I just want you to do 5 push-ups and do that for 8 weeks. I said, no matter what you do, I said, just write that down and do it for the next 8 weeks. And I swear to you, it wasn't 2 minutes later. The guy's got a really nice backhand, and he came in and mid-court and boom, drop shot. But, he did the push-ups. And so I think that's, really what we're getting at. It's just trying to create ways to create awareness in tactics and technique and getting kids to really see it in a different way, maybe.
It's amazing on the Pro Tour how many people finesse volleys. I was with the late Tom Fye. We were in New York, and Elliot Telscher, who came out of the Kramer Club, where Braden was for 7 years, and Lansdorp came in and took his place. And it was Guy Weinhold, who went to Tennis Tech with his wife Lisa. Their daughter Ashley became number one in the juniors. So it was a young Sam Querrey. So those were the two people assisting Elliot Telscher. And I remember just telling Tommy, I said, this kid Querrey is going to finesse every volley. All these years later, his humor has taken him to TV. He's got from the podcast to TV, where he's just self-deprecating about his volley. I like assignment drills. Okay, one is, can you serve? Can you set the person up for the approach shot? Play the approach shot. Play the lob. Play the overhead. 5 balls. You can make it be the first shot after the return is to have your opponent, your partner who does a partner drill, play a volley. Then you say, okay, everything to the backhand. So with 5 called assignment drill, serve to the backhand, return to the backhand, approach from the backhand to the backhand, lob over the backhand side, and play that specialty shot where they play a swinging 2-hander versus the emergency shot where they hit reverse overhead. And, but just say, okay, play these 5 shots, and then you play the point out. And, then you're keeping score. And so after that high backhand, okay, from there you play the point out. You keep score, but you have to hit the 5 shots before you keep score. And it requires skill. And then, people make the connection between going through all the static balance work, and then that's why you can play. I mean, and Alex Cairo, he's playing at the University of Michigan. Not everybody gets to play at the University of Michigan. Is, what did he do when he was really young? And there's way too much emphasis. Early this morning, I sent a text to a young player who's just turned 7 and is not going to be here for a few days. Say, you have a place up here now. And I said, the most important thing for you right now with your son is you got to check the left hand if it's on 4, and if the right hand also goes towards 4, and he's also collapsing the wrists on 4. And it's, and I told him, I said, I've watched you do a lot of extra practices with your son, but I don't recall ever seeing you do a static balance drill when you're out there. It's just not run and gun. You always have to go back and cleanse. And Kramer was famous for that. It was that he'd win, he'd shower, then he'd go out and work on technique. But because your technique, especially with little kids, when that ball gets up high, they're going to get away from that Eastern grip and start going. I don't really like to see him go past the bottom of the 3rd panel. It's not just the grip; it's where the wrist and elbow position are as well. But I do think that's where having someone play a set where you can't retreat behind the baseline. You have to play inside the baseline. I remember the first time I heard that was from John Newcomb.
The Newcomb drill.
And just give the drill a name. That way you remember it. Make it a story. Up here is our 3rd summer, and a little bit the hotel guests or the members really enjoy it. Is they have the kids play customer tennis. Put the ball right on a dime. Make the person on the other side look like $1 million. And most kids don't do that anymore. Plus, it's really good for them to go out, shake hands, meet people, greet people. Want to move on to something else on this short list?
Yeah, you bet.
We can touch upon this. We'll get back to this in detail. But Vic Braden used to say to me, Steve, we should have had a master plan. And what would, turning the clock back for the late Braden, the master plan, Jeff Lewis asked him one time, and he said, yeah, I should have done it, is had a certification program. He did have a course for coaches, USTA, United States Tennis Academy. And then he was politely asked by the USTA, and Vic said, yeah, no problem. And he turned the acronym over to them because it used to be the USLTA. But the master plan, it's rolling out now. The USTA is, and I just heard say, well, the USTA is not pleased with the work of the PTR, Professional Tennis Registry. And, that goes back a lot of years to say, but currently, and then the new RSPA, the former USPTA, but I guess you could share a few thoughts on the master plan, but it's all the same, like say with academia. Okay, we got to learn to count, we got to learn to add, we got to learn to subtract, and that's where the term GreatBase is a foundation.
To me, the GreatBase should be and I know but from my end, I think the GreatBase should be a certification process, because it's much more than the former, USPTA and USPTR. And I believe it also, through that certification process, could help fund greater and greater things for the GreatBase. And I know the USTA has, I read through, I think I might have even sent something a week or two ago. I'm sure you already had it, but, in one of the racket sports industry magazines that come out, they have a big article. The whole, it's a lot devoted to explaining what their initiative is with the new coaching certifications, the tennis certifications. And I think that, they're priding themselves on the fact that they're exclusive to the sport of tennis, that they're not diversifying into the other racket sports. But I'd like to think that it's going to head in a positive direction, but I based on history, am not really that optimistic about it. I think that there is a huge need for a bona fide certification. We were talking about it. Coach Andres and I met with this really, really nice person who Coach Andres connected us with, and they're a tech. They know more about tech than I could ever even dream of knowing, and have set up all these things. And so met with him yesterday about kind of something like that. That was one of the things I was going to share with you offline, but the incredible network already through the GreatBase. If we did have a certification and it was able to fund things like, okay, now with a click of a button, I can literally pull up any place, whether it's a kid going to Europe, a kid going to a different part of the United States somewhere, and immediately the GreatBase certified coaches are on there and the GreatBase certified programs. And this person with the technology is really keen on just helping the initiative and to make something like that come into reality. But to me, a master plan like that would be a great starting point for the education part of it. And I think that all of us sometimes don't realize how many people are out there fighting the good fight. I think that people feel like they're in the minority, which in some ways possibly they are with the information and knowledge. But gosh, there's a lot of us out there who have been touched by the information, and I think that if we were all united, one person sometimes can't do things to the same extent as 100,000. And I think there's just a lot of people out there who would gladly get certified and have a legitimate, resource in the GreatBase, which I know you're doing right now for free. But I think that, to me, when I think of the master plan for the GreatBase, that comes to my mind every time. And it's not a monetary driven thing. It would just be really to provide more excellence, be able to do more things for the people that are involved in it, to help more people.
A few thoughts along those lines. One of our former students, associates, was in tennis for a long time and has been out, but still is very passionate. Sent me an article that he wrote, and I understand we're going to put it up where it's anonymous, but standard of care. That's pretty much the topic, the title, I should say, the title, standard of care. I like from a company years ago, I can't remember the name of the company, maybe you do, educate the consumer. In junior tennis, the parent should be the boss. They're writing the check. And they're blindly writing checks. Guarantee you, if the parent was educated, the coach would become educated because they'd be out of business. Maybe they run off, and some are doing that anyway, teaching pickleball. That's another thing, though, is that pickleball and tennis should be taught the same. Ready position, unit turn, large body parts. You got to move your feet, and posture comes into playing both tennis and pickleball. It's just wiffle ball. I mean, it's baseball, softball, wiffle ball. And I remember when I was a kid, I couldn't hit a baseball, but I could hit a wiffle ball, especially when they came up with that bigger bat. But a pilot project, the USTA had the word united. People need to, someone told me that this week, is they have to see the training. They have to see training. It's actually an insult, and it happens all the time where, again, it's on my phone, and talking to Ivan Osaretz today, still I should have a newsletter with all the odds and ends that's just sent to my phone, let alone other people's phones. And the kids that are doing well, but it's at the grassroots level. It's not at the Grand Slam level. But at the USTA, one of the sections could have a pilot project and say, just let us show you how it's done. But to have the parent come in, and they are the ones that are becoming the educated consumer. We use peer teaching, and it's very powerful. Parents, it's very expensive. I tell kids all the time, if your parents are out there tossing you balls and coaching you, the kids just have to realize how expensive it is, and Program Plus, doing things on your own. Feeding breadcrumbs to a pigeon, you should be able to feed balls to your child. And then also you can reverse it. A lot of times we'll actually make a video of an adult and say, do this on the court. Have your son, daughter toss you balls. Work on your strokes. Get some exercise. And I mean, it's a marathon. It's a long, long journey to become a tennis player. But the master plan, it's like building a house, the foundation. You always the story of the three little pigs. Build your tennis game out of brick by brick, and all the way to the very top. Players will have. It's like, okay, no one has a perfect game, but like say an Alcaraz comes along, and he's not technically as good as center on the serve, but just how he hits the tennis ball. The fundamentals are there. Here's one thing moving along, and this could be part of it too, is adult beginners. We had two ladies up here from Myrtle Beach, and Yvonne put a montage. It's like 24 minutes of we had kids helping them out, and it's really tough for an adult to enter tennis because of the learning curve. Braden used to always say, people buy the groceries, people buy the tennis clothes and they wear them at the grocery store because it's so difficult to just go out and be able to rally. But that's not happening in pickleball. You buy the outfits, you can play. You're just good to go. Any thoughts? We've been asked to talk more about adult beginners.
Well, I mean, it's a huge part of the world that I know I'm in here with a club like this, and we have two pros that really that is it. geared towards trying to get more grassroots adult players into the sport, and they do an amazing job of, one of them well, Tim. Tim Adams. He's not here anymore. He's retired, but I've never seen a human being put out more energy into adult beginners than Tim did. And not only did he, he just cared about them. He cared about taking them. He took incredible pride in getting them from beginners to 2.5 to maybe to 3.0. And I mean, every match they played, and he would talk to them about it and check on how they did. And I think adult beginners are almost treated like, tiny tots in our world. Everybody just gravitates towards people that can really play. And, boy, do we need more adult beginners. And we're very fortunate here because there's two guys that are really involved in it who actually both, went through our early childhood program as kids, and now they're in their mid and late 30s. And they just do an incredible job of getting people off to a really, really good start. And, I teach next to that ball machine court every day, and I watch some new faces pop out, and I'll be like, who's teaching you, Eric or Travis? And, it's always somebody like that. The other day it was Gary Albert's name mentioned, and he's getting involved in that and getting them off to a great start. And to me, I think adult beginners thrive in groups. They do really well, and I think their attrition rate is a lot less when they're involved in groups.
Yeah, ECD, early childhood development. I would say in junior tennis, people, they run away from teaching beginners. A lot of times the person with the title, the tennis director, they have nothing to do with beginners. And as we all know, it's just glorified babysitting. But tennis for tykes and parents alike. Do you see that course description, mommy and me, daddy and me, and teach people to practice together. And when they're really, really young, certainly bring cross-training into it, doing other sports on a tennis court. How many people can dribble a basketball both right-handed and left-handed? Can you dribble a basketball and be moving a soccer ball between your left foot and your right foot at the same time? All those exercises. One of my brothers wrote a book. I wrote 10 books, but the first one was on dryland training for hockey, and it was just 50 different exercises to become more athletic. And I like to have kids. They have two rackets. They're trying to just run and have one tennis ball transition to the next, one racket to the next. But I think with adult beginners, I remember way back with All American Sports, it was just instruction, destruction. I was a rookie coach, but we had these wine and cheese round robins. You teach tennis all day, and I pulled it off. Where there was beer too, but we just came out and had a party practicing. I just gave them a choice. You want to play, you go left on these two courts. If you want to, work on what we did all day long, come over to these two courts. And we had Doug Cash on. You helped with that podcast, and TNT with Alan Schwartz, the Tennis in No Time. I remember when I first started working there was videos on how they taught TNT. So I said, well, we have to improve how we teach stroke production during TNT, but not change format. The format was having two people come out and use the ball machine, having people come out and practice with one another, and make it social. Make it social. I get text messages from Mike Custer. He was on this, and I always come back to, he had an adult brochure where you're not going to play the first year. And 1 year goes by. I think the USTA has failed on that. Like, let's hook them. You remember when they had the game that was like polo? It was very dangerous. Kids were just whacking at it. Like
Jungle Ball.
they had a different name for it. What was it? It was about the size of a softball, soft. And it was like they didn't have the horse, but they were playing polo. And they were making it a game. But, I was watching someone teach a beginning little kid today. And, they're just, I'm looking right out the window, and I'm doing some emails. And Vic used to always say, let them hit some balls. Let them hit some balls, So at the end of the day, how many tennis balls did they hit? But the adult beginner, it's hard for them to start to play. It's hard for them to start to play. Dennis used to always say, Dennis Vandermeer, once you get to people where they can rally, they're hooked. But then you got to get it where they can play with other people who can rally. But I do think that's something in tennis right now is that pickleball is here to stay, and it shouldn't be two different approaches. The people are out there making it up and say this is how you play pickleball, and so it's like everybody wants to be an expert. I think if people are new to listening to these GreatBase podcasts, it's not like we're trying to reinvent the wheel. The wheel's already invented. I've got one other one down here that we can touch upon.
Yep.
I guess two, maybe we'll go over two, but just touch upon them. We need to come back because I've been told that we need to really go over different ways to chart. But before we do charting, let's just touch upon, this is a good one. This is from a mom whose daughter's been here many, many times. What other reasons do you have to tell a kid why they're learning to play tennis other than college tennis is a goal, pro tennis is a dream? What comes to your mind? What reasons for and really for anybody to play tennis? But what would you tell juniors? Why do they want to play?
Well, I think it's a great. I mean, I listen to Coach Andreas talk about this every day to parents and to kids. It's just, it truly is a great teacher for so many things. Number one, I mean, the first thing that comes to my mind is it's really fun. I mean, I think that tennis is just fun. The sport itself, to me, is incredibly challenging. It's a puzzle that you actually never get to complete. It's a puzzle that kind of changes on you each day. So, it definitely rewards the growth-minded individual. I think they're going to gravitate towards it a little bit easier than a fixed-minded. But what I would tell them is it's incredibly fun. It is a great way to be around other people. You get the individual aspect of it in playing singles. You can have a team aspect of it, playing doubles. It's something that in your adult life you get to keep going with. I played softball and basketball up until probably 40, 45 years old, and gave basketball up a little earlier. It just got to the point where I was getting too beat up. Softball, I was getting injured a lot too. Tennis, I think, is a sport you truly can. I don't think it's called a lifetime sport by accident. I think you can carry on the journey really until the day you go under. And I think it's just a unique sport in that no matter where you move in America or wherever your job takes you or whatever you have to go do in another city, there's always courts and there's always a club, and then you're going to have a connection socially too, to continue, because many adults, they just don't have anything. And like you, I always tell kids, hey, give your mom and dad a tennis lesson. Give your mom and dad a tennis lesson. Let them experience the joy of the sport. But I think there's just so many benefits. Obviously, the benefits they talk about with the way that it activates the brain and the longevity and how it can prevent a lot of age-related things. But gosh, at the end of the day, it's just a lot of fun.
I like to tell people, put a biscuit in your pocket and tell your dog what you're working on. You have to have a dog, though. Cats are a little bit aloof.
Yeah.
But personality lessons 101. You mentioned it already, people skills, social skills. One thing about fun, I think it's always important to ask kids, are you only having fun when you win? You got to have fun when you compete. And, that's time to say the Jimmy Connors famous quote, greatest thing in life is play tennis and win. Second greatest thing in life is play tennis and lose. Make your game a masterpiece. Keep chipping away at it. It is. It's like when Steffi Graf was asked, she was in Andre's, the book Open, his autobiography, I hate tennis. And she was asked, were you shocked? And she goes, hate tennis, doesn't everybody? You're going to have a love-hate relationship. Frustration can be a great teacher, but you got to meet it head on. I mean, it is a corporate sport. I tell people all the time, the kids, if they were to write a 3 or 4 sentence bio, they need to put down, tennis is my favorite hobby, or I love tennis, and I'm working at becoming a better tennis teacher and a better tennis player. Because most kids don't think of themselves being able to give back, being able to teach. But with, it's like, what else would you be doing? And then also, too, as I ask kids, are you going to be playing when you're 35? We have a gal here who's 21, super athlete. She's competed, played 4 years of college tennis. And we're watching a gal from Wimbledon, 38 years old. So, player 17 years old is never give up. You can always keep getting better. So, I think a lot of kids aren't even aware of the age groups. I do think in the U.S., they're really good college players that decide not to go to the next level and try to play pro tennis. They start banging golf balls. And they leave the sport. We have to do a better job having people stay in the sport. That's one thing about really good tennis players. They have such a great club system in Europe where there's perks where they get to be a member of the club. People come out and watch them play. There's all sorts of connections for them to make in the business world. But yeah, it's unfortunate that a lot of our good college players will stop after they play. Let's just touch upon charting. Vic Braden.
Yep.
Objective data. How to get better. Jim Verdict, put your brains down. Jim Verdict's still the only coach, his level of dedication is that he would not watch tennis and not chart. I'm pretty slow, but I'm watching tennis now, and I've got my phone and my laptop, and you're communicating with people, and that's important, but to actually, we tell juniors, if you were to chart 10 points a day, the easiest way to chart is get a piece of paper, draw a tennis court, get one of those pens. It's a clicker where you click it writes blue, you click it writes red, and just tell a little kid, okay, just put down a red F for forehand and a red B for backhand. That's it. Just chart those, really young player. And the graphics of it, then you can say, well, also on that tennis court, put down where the error was made, and then just draw a line so they missed it from the backhand corner. And so they say they missed it wide, they draw a line from the point of the crime to where the ball landed. So and people will play 50 points a set, and they keep making the same mistakes. But yeah, we'll just wrap this up. Why don't you go with a few more thoughts on charting?
Yeah, I think it takes the mystery out of it. I think as coaches, I think all the time when I said that Back to the Future several years back, I know on a personal level here, we have to go back to the future, because when the program was smaller, did a better job, actually had courses to help parents learn to chart. And, it helped them not only be able to, hand their kids something at the end of the match that got them to understand, but it also got them to understand why we maybe practice the way we practice. because, I think everybody is just unaware of what's really going on out there. And, it helps everybody, coaches, players, parents. And I think what you said is key, probably, at least in the world I'm in right now. And that is, you may not be able to chart a whole match. I mean, you can, but just charting a tiebreaker, and charting, 4 games, X amount of points to create the awareness. Because I just feel that the mystery of why people win and lose is kind of the curtains pulled, and people see that, this is a little bit more of objectivity rather than subjectivity. It's not as simple as, what you hear when you listen to the pro game and people say, they didn't have their rhythm today, or they couldn't feel their game, or, many times it's just people are making bad decisions about where they're hitting and what they're trying to do on the tennis court.
Raven Clausen, 4.5 years, sent to us. He's 18 years old. He's number 1, number 2 in South Africa, changed every stroke. Some obviously major surgery, some with Band-Aid. And I can remember at the startup tournaments, the pro tournaments, being at the futures level and say, okay, we know he's playing tomorrow. And okay, he's in the finals, isn't it great? And we'll fill up the van. We're driving from Tampa to Orlando, and we're going to chart the match 5 different ways. And then you meet afterwards. I spent a lot of weekends at the Battle of Boca, which is a nice service in South Florida, tournament every weekend. And, a side note, Battle of Boca. One of our students, a kid from Quebec, comes up, hits a volley, and the other kid yells out, "I didn't know you were allowed to volley in the Battle of Boca." And, but with different ways to chart, just the confrontation, red zone to red zone. How many points were played red zone to red zone? How many times did you change the direction of the ball from behind the baseline? And I've been told that young people today, they need a visual instead of just the number. With letting people know what was the score. What was the score? Not just 6-3, but the point spread. Let's go Vegas and go, okay, how many points did you win? How many points did you lose? And so that's another thing. We're just going out and keeping score. We've done it this summer where you ask people, what's the score? And they'll say, 71-58. And you say, you just give them the speech. You're just keeping score that way. And then it's like, well, okay, let's go. How did you lose 58 points? And where are you missing? And it's okay to make a mistake, but to make a mistake and not know the correction, that's a problem. And then just keep repeating it over and over and over again. And that's where players get stuck in the mud. You should have some fun working on something new. If you were a musician, you wouldn't just play one song. But we break it down into serve, return, rally, transition, close. And how do you do in each of those departments? And you're just okay. You're gonna count. You can have a young kid watch a match, and you're gonna use a tally system. I want to know how many volleys they hit, and how many overheads they hit. And you just got 3 columns, and you're just gonna make a number. So 0.1, 0.2, 0.3. A pad of paper. Watch and it's just mind-boggling. That I tell parents all the time, you go to a tournament for 3 days, junior tennis now, and not see one overhead hit. I mean, you can't make that up. I mean, it's like, that's either somebody with an outrageous opinion, or that's a hardcore fact, a reality, and that's not going to turn into what you want it to. But charting, flow charting, Chuck Creasy, big on that. Where when it rains, it pours. You just get a graph paper and just draw the dots, and the kid wins 1 point, 2 points, 3 points, and then they lose one, and they just can't clear the computer, reset, short-term memory. Okay, the last point was over, post-plan, pre-plan, play the next point. And so then they become the emotional roller coaster where you see with their body language. That was something with Bill Jacobs' CompuTennis, a user stat. Mario Casentino, he became a really good tennis player. Beautiful strokes. And just how many times would you say, oh my God, I said, you're the most religious player I've ever coached. Why don't you pray in church? Oh my God. Oh my God. It's like a scary, you give kids, okay, I'll give you a nickname for how many times do you say scary movie? With the physical action response, acceptable, unacceptable. And just watch them when the point's over. And then, you can film that. That's what, where Lair really made a difference when he first came on the scene. Yeah, let's go a couple more comments on charting. This is one thing on the list too. It's kind of a smorgasbord here. Someone we asked, somebody who's chipping away at listening to all the podcasts and said I didn't want to make any requests, so I listened to all of them. We have some people that's pretty fanatical where they join us. Say we're in the 200s now, 263, and they go backwards and listen to them. But what was it like a day at the Vic Braden Tennis College? But on charting, just think about other sports. Basketball players know their shooting percentage. Baseball players know their batting average. It's really not part of the tennis culture. Going all the way to Federer being asked about charts and said, no, the only time I look at them was when at the press room at Wimbledon, they put the stats in front of me. I look at it then. And they asked about the coach. Yeah, no, he doesn't either. We just go on hunches. But in 2017, and then even his interviews, his answers were a little bit different after that, where they were a lot different. Yeah, anything else on charting comes to your mind?
Well, I mentioned this to a parent yesterday. I said it's unfortunate in our sport that, you can really masquerade in the coaching aspect of our sport, especially. You can masquerade. It's easier to masquerade at the higher level, I think, a little bit. And I said it just isn't the same. And it's the same thing you just said. I said in many other sports, there's just, they're stat driven. I mean, if you're the defensive coordinator for the Dallas Cowboys and, the team is second to last in the NFL, I mean, you're getting your resume updated. But I think in tennis, there's just a world dominated by opinion. And, I think that it, at every single level, could be more stat driven. I mean, I'd be so curious to know how many of the people in the top 100 are accessing, and we talked about this a little bit, accessing the data that's out there, and are they? I think that what happens is when people get, to a level of professional tennis or they're, really, really good juniors, I just feel like people get scared to talk to them, truthfully, and their job is obviously at the discretion of the player as to whether they come back tomorrow or not. And, I don't think that's how coaching should be. I think that you have to be able to speak the truth, and the other person has to be, able to hear it. And, charting it takes the opinion out of it. Anything that takes the opinion out of it. Charting is like video analysis. I've been showing that Ottman serve to everybody. And, the guy is just at the checkpoints, the 345s are just brilliant at the point of impact. And, to me, it's just another way to validate how to grow, how to grow as a player. And I don't know why people would have such a hard time swallowing that pill if you're a player. It's like, hey, I want to I want to win. So I want to know that I'm redirecting my forehand from 3 feet behind the baseline and making errors repeatedly. And now I have the choice to make a decision to do something about it, or I don't. But I would think it would be, from a player's ears, I would think that it would sound very good, not as a negative.
Here's a great way to get people to laugh if they've been around tennis. Julian Krinsky, who you remember, obviously he was an excellent tennis player, great businessman, great personality. So I learned so much by being part of his program. He used to have me come in and train his coaches. So Julian would say, this is how you play. This is how you coach pro tennis. He just hugs his racket. And, just think about the coaches. Same thing with college tennis, too. I'm just going to hug my racket. Because you can just roll out the balls. I mean, I've told so many college coaches. I remember telling Craig Tiley and Bruce Burke, who always had a lot of success, I said, guys, never stop teaching beginners. You got to always teach. I told an AD, I was in Florida meeting with an athletic director a couple of days ago, and said, well, one advice I'd have to you is when you hire people, hire the best teachers. With talking about charting, people just don't chart doubles. Cole Reeves, who's been a guest on the podcast, I had a lot to do with Cole. I was talking to him today, and I'm not on Instagram. Actually, I'm not on social media. We do put out things on social media for sure, but like this podcast. But Cole, take a car, put it together, you can build a house. He's a techie, a technician, a builder. So he was, he asked me about this player who's been here a few times. And anyway, so I was with Coach Ilya, was looking at it, a young girl playing doubles. And then you hear things like old school, because she can actually serve and volley, and her best tennis is ahead of her. She's really made a lot of technical changes. But mind, mobility, mechanics, pushing buttons for her to be more mature, but she's so much more mature than kids her age. I think the edifying on TV, they're, you say, okay, well, how many unforced errors did the pros make? And, we know, like say, Swiatek, we just know she's so great with her feet. She's a great competitor, ultra focused. Now she's a Wimbledon champion. Then, so you take the top players, and we know they're awesome. But when it comes down, how could they be better? And it's not a matter of just changing technique. Is how many lost opportunities to come in, or how many times they really weren't in volleying position. How many times did they move laterally? Hey, this player's great, but in other sports, a fumble's a fumble in football. Basketball, turnover is a turnover, and they're just key in who wins and who loses. I think also too is charting opportunities. Just the tally system, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, and how many opportunities. And it's the opinion of the person charting. How many opportunities did they play? How many opportunities did they not capitalize on? First strike tennis, all these things, serve +1. But kill or be killed. But, how many balls landed in the service line where you didn't even move up, let alone the ball landed in the service line and you didn't come to the net? And then at the end of the day, percentages. You don't want to just tell somebody, well, you only came to the net 8 times. You want to tell them what percentage of the points they came in. But anyway, with our podcast, we continue. I'd like to thank you, Dave, for helping us out with another one. Thank our listeners. Yvonne is still doing the editing. We'll keep going forward. And, it's like listening to, I think about the 8 pillars we have. You get a chance to listen to, say some years ago, and that's what we're trying to do is carry the torch from some of these tennis teachers for the past, is you have to hang in there for the pearls of wisdom. So, it's like I remember not missing a lecture when I was working for Braden. I wasn't going to be out on the deck eating orange slices. I wasn't going to go around the corner. We had an indoor gym and shoot baskets. he's going to lecture for 45 minutes. I'm going to sit in the back of the room, and he's going to say at least one thing minimum, and then it's all about trying to get a higher level of understanding. All about the tennis IQ. But Davido, thank you very much, listeners. Thank you very much.
Yeah.
Our podcast in the books.
All right.
Adios, amigos.
Okay, Steve. Have a good day.
All right. Thank you.
Bye-bye.